Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the free training, Loving the Thin Skin You're In. So yesterday we talked a lot about self-care. We talked about what it means to be highly sensitive and or an empath. We talked about how it's a genetic trait, how you can start to relate to your sensitivity differently and see it as the true superpower that it is. And today we are going to be diving into all the feels. So we're going to be talking about emotional overwhelm and really how to process and release feelings so that you don't get so overloaded by them that then manifests into anxiety and depression and all sorts of other things. So once again, just to let you guys know, I'm broadcasting on Facebook and on Instagram, so I'll kind of be flipping back and forth between looking at Instagram, looking at Facebook. So if you see my eyes darting around, that's why. As you're coming in, please say hello. Let me know that you're watching. Let me know where you're from. I'm so excited to be bringing you guys this training. So today's going to be really awesome. And before I dive into today's content, I wanted to once again just give you guys a little overview of the program that I am promoting right now. The doors are closing in 4 days, so I'm getting really excited for the amazing women that are coming in. Hi, you guys. I see people joining live on Instagram. Hello. So what I'm putting out into the world right now, the magic that I have created, is a program called the Sensitive Badass Coaching Mentorship. Those of you that have followed me for a while know that I call myself the Sensitive Badass, and this is specifically because I do believe that being soft and being strong are not mutually exclusive. These are things that can coexist. In fact, I believe that most sensitive people are way, way stronger than they even realize. The problem is not that we're not strong. The problem is that we need to be able to connect to our own strength better. And in a world that has often reflected back to us that we are weak, or that we're too sensitive or too dramatic or all these sorts of things, right? We get very easily talked out of our own truth. And so a lot of the work that I do and what we're going to be really diving into in this program is about, what I call coming back home to yourself, coming back home to who you truly are before the world told you who you were supposed to be. And this program is really, really powerful. It's very deep. It's very raw. It's very real. This is not fluff. And there's a reason why it's 6 months long. And that's because this work takes time. This work really takes time to sit in, to integrate, for us to be able to really process and really embody the work that we're going to be learning in this program. Specifically those of us who are sensitive, it takes us longer to integrate and process things. And I've found through the work that I've done with clients in the past that that's pretty much the sweet spot, is that 6-month mark. So that's why it's 6 months long. And the way that this program works is that there's going to be one-on-one sessions with me. So you'll have my individual support as your coach and your intuitive guide. And then we have a group aspect as well, where we're going to be coming together in this really beautiful sacred sisterhood of 10 highly sensitive empath women. And we're going to be supporting each other through this journey and through this process so that you know that you're not alone. And also because when we create a container of healing and growth where there is a community of women that come together, there's a lot of magic and power that can happen from that. And it really expands your support network beyond just me to the other women that are in the group. There is a ton of amazing bonuses that come with this. If you guys are at all interested in this program, for those of you on Instagram, you can check out the link in my profile to get all the details. And for those of you on Facebook, the link is in the title of this video that you're watching right now. So check it out if you guys are feeling called at all. We have 4 more days before the doors close. You can also schedule a call with me, a free call with me, to get on the phone where we can really chat about if this is a good fit for you or not. These calls are super low key. It's really just a chance for us to chat, get to know each other. I can support you around whatever's coming up with your sensitivity, anything that you're struggling with. And then we can talk through together if this is the right time for you to, commit to a program like this. I really want everybody that comes into this program to feel very empowered and very positive about it and really, really good. So that's what these calls are for. So take advantage of that. Again, on Instagram, if you go to the link in my profile, that is where the information is for the program. And you can also schedule your free call with me through the link there as well. And Facebook, same thing. If you go to the link that is in the title here, and I will also post below when this video ends the direct link to schedule the call with me. So be sure to take an advantage of that before this Friday. Doors close at midnight on Friday. Okay, so let's dive into the content today, the free training. all the feels. So some of you may have taken my free course, All the Feels, and I encourage everybody that hasn't to take advantage of that opportunity as well. That link is also in my Instagram profile. It's a 5-day free course where I go really in depth with this stuff about how to deal with emotional overwhelm. And for those of you on Facebook, I'll put that link in the comments below as well as soon as this finishes. But basically what I want to talk to you guys about today is one of the biggest struggles that we have as sensitive and empath women, right? Is how to process and deal with the emotional overwhelm that comes from being a deeply feeling soul in this world. And this is a very real issue. You know, nobody teaches us this stuff. I mean, well, I do, but when I was growing up, there wasn't really a lot of information out there about this. Nobody was really talking about it. And in fact, I didn't even realize that it was something that I needed to learn. All I knew was that I felt deeply flawed and I was constantly overwhelmed and anxious, and I felt very unsafe in the world, and that everybody around me had reflected back to me that my feelings were somehow wrong, that they were an overreaction, you know, that I was too dramatic, that I made too big of a deal out of things. And so because of that, I thought they must be right. And I then started to disconnect from my own feelings. I started to talk myself out of my truth, of what I knew to be true deep inside, what I was experiencing. But because the people in the world around me were reflecting back to me that that wasn't true, I started to invalidate my own feelings as a way to try and survive, to cope, right? To belong, to be loved, to fit in, because I always felt like I didn't fit in. And I wanted that desperately. We all do. So I learned at an early age that if I disconnected from my feelings, what I thought was that that was the best way to be able to navigate the world. Now, unfortunately, what happens to so many of us who experience this is that the more that we disconnect from our truth and the more that we disconnect from our own feelings, the worse off we actually are. So, because when we are pushing our feelings down and when we aren't letting ourselves process them and we aren't even really letting ourselves validate that we're actually having those feelings, right? We're talking ourselves out of them. We're telling ourselves the things that everybody else around us has told us, that we're overreacting, that we're making too big of a deal out of nothing. And then these feelings, what happens is they don't go anywhere. Because feelings, all that they want is they want to be seen and heard. They're literally just there as guideposts for us. They can be uncomfortable, they can be very painful, but the point of our feelings is to really help direct us to the next right step. And so the other thing is that we're not supposed to be happy all the time. Of course, we want happiness as our ultimate goal, but I like to think of life in terms of meaningfulness versus happiness all the time. And we live in a culture that often tells us that we're supposed to be happy all the time, right? That, you know, if you're not happy, pop a pill. Or, you know, when you're upset, people will say to you, well, what's wrong with you? Let's fix this. And so we're given the sense that if we have an emotion that isn't happiness, whether it's anger or sadness or frustration, that it's somehow unacceptable and that it needs to be covered up immediately. Now, of course, we don't want to sit and dwell in anger or frustration or sadness, but to move through these emotions, we have to let ourselves really feel them. We have to let ourselves process them and validate them to ourselves. Because otherwise, what happens when we just slap a Band-Aid over something is that it doesn't really go anywhere. These feelings get stored in our body. They get stored, you know, in us, and they stack up over time. And so a lot of times what happens is that when we start to try and connect back to our truth and start to try and connect back to our emotions, we feel like, or at least I used to say that it felt like there was this tidal wave of feeling behind me that was just chasing me constantly. And I felt like if I let myself go there, if I let myself connect within, I was going to cry for like weeks on end, that I was just going to open the floodgates and I was going to completely fall apart. And then my worst fear, oh no, we lost our Instagram. All right, sorry guys. Hang on. Getting my phone set back up. Okay, well, let's see. Make sure this is stable. Sorry for my hand in your face, guys. All right, so my worst fear was that people would think that I was crazy. And so I thought that if, you know, I let the floodgates open on my emotions, that would come true, that everybody would think that I was crazy. The truth is that we need to allow our emotions to come out. It's incredibly healthy to learn how to make friends with our emotions, to be able to process them on a regular basis, because when we do that, they lift so much easier. And so if you're struggling with emotional overwhelm, and if you're a sensitive person who's had a hard time in the past connecting to your feelings, know that in the beginning it's going to feel a lot heavier and it's going to feel a lot harder, because you do have layer upon layer upon layer of feelings that have been pushed down over time. And those need to come up. They need to be healed. They need to be seen, and they need to be worked through. And that can be challenging in the beginning, but it doesn't mean that it's not possible. And the cool thing is that what happens is, as you start to do this work and as you start to process and move through a lot of those feelings, then when something comes up, it doesn't always feel so overwhelming and like such a big deal. Because instead of having this backlog of emotional, stuntedness of things that have been pushed down, you're just dealing with the feeling that is present right there in that day, in that moment. And so it becomes much easier. But what stops a lot of us from letting ourselves do this work is that backlog of emotions, because it's so hard in the beginning, especially by yourself, to really let some of that stuff out. It can feel very scary and it can feel very unsafe. And so, hi guys, people are just saying hello. Hello, everybody. And so what we need to do to heal this emotional overwhelm, which is one of the biggest things that you need to do to be able to start feeling safe in the world as a sensitive person, is really connecting back to your truth. And so the first step is awareness. Awareness is huge. We're very, very outward focused as sensitives. I talked about this yesterday in the training yesterday. We're very much scanning our environment at all times. We're feeling into everybody else's emotions, right? We're feeling into everybody else's energy. We are looking for ways to appease situations. We're looking for ways to kind of, morph ourselves so that we can avoid conflict and fit in. And we're always kind of scanning our environment. So step number one is really learning how to go back within and to feel okay about doing that. Because a lot of times in the beginning, we feel guilty looking within. It scares us to look within because we have this part of ourselves that has felt deeply flawed and so different for so long. And so one of the tools that I recommend to a lot of people, and I talk about this in my free All the Feels course, is to set an alarm on your phone for several times a day. And I call this taking your emotional pulse. I literally have a tattoo on my wrist that I got there to remind me to do this in the very beginning. So taking your emotional pulse, all this means is that when this alarm goes off, stop whatever you're doing. I mean, obviously, if you're in a work meeting or something, wait until after, of course. But if you have the opportunity when the alarm goes off, stop what you're doing, go outside, go into the bathroom if you have to, if you're at work. I used to do this when I worked in advertising. I would sneak into the bathroom and just do these little emotional pulse check-ins. And just like, you can put your hand on your heart, just like connect within, because what you're doing is you're retraining your brain to not always be looking outside of yourself, but to come back and connect within and to ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What am I experiencing right now? What do I feel in my body? What am I feeling emotionally? And this sounds like a really simple thing, and it is, but it's simple, but it's powerful. And it's powerful because you're starting to let yourself know that it's okay to go back within, and you're building that muscle, which it literally is a muscle, and an emotional muscle of being able to connect with what you're feeling when you're so used to being tuned into what everybody else is feeling, right? This is retraining yourself to be able to go within. And what's super helpful about this is that it's going to help you to connect with what you're feeling in the moment. And when you can do that, it's easier for you to allow that feeling and process it. And B, it's going to help you big time with differentiating between what is your feeling and what are the feelings of others. Because this is one of our biggest struggles as sensitives, right? Is not knowing what's ours and what's not, and picking up other people's bad moods and absorbing other people's negativity. And so the biggest thing that's going to start to help you with that, to be able to release what's not yours and release what is yours, is to be aware of it. But what typically happens is that we go through our day and we're working and we have responsibilities and, we're doing our usual thing of being very outward focused, and we get home at the end of the day and it's all just this big tangled mess. And at that point, we're so overwhelmed and we're so anxious that it's very hard to be able to connect to what's yours and what's not. So when you can start to train yourself to interrupt your day, to check in with yourself, this is going to be very, very powerful for you because awareness is really your best friend. And the more that you're aware of how you're feeling and the feelings that you've picked up from others, the more that you're going to be able to do something about it. So let's get to that. What do you do about it? Right? So we have to give ourselves space and time to be able to process these feelings and emotions. Especially, I mean, everybody needs this, especially those of us who are highly sensitive and empaths. It's really imperative. And I really drove this home yesterday when we were talking about self-care and about connection to yourself. And the reason why this is so important is because the more that we get to know ourselves and the more that we build strength in our relationship with ourselves, the more quickly we will become aware when we are picking up things that are not ours. Because we will be so centered in our own energy that a radar will start to go off when we're absorbing somebody else's. And so when you do absorb somebody else's energy, there's several different things that you can do. Being aware of it is really the biggest thing. Once you're aware of it, you can start to piece together, okay, what happened? Like, all right, my coworker was in a really bad mood today and I was sitting next to them and they were bitching all day, right? So obviously you being a more porous energy being are going to be susceptible to that. So you recognize it, you look at what's happening, and then you can say, okay, like literally say to yourself, this is not mine. Claim it as not yours. And you can do this thing called return to sender, where you basically, I mean, for me personally, I'll say a prayer, and it doesn't matter. This is not denominational. It doesn't matter what your higher power is, or if you don't have one, that's fine too. But if you do, God, angel, Buddha, spirit, I don't care. Just say a prayer, an energetic prayer of, you know, bless this person for this thing that they're dealing with, but this energy is not mine, and I return it to sender with love. And when you do that, you're really transmuting that energy. You're releasing it, but you're releasing it with love and sending it back to the person. Because one of the things that happens with us as sensitives is that we feel like because we can tap into and tune into so easily other people's feelings and other people's energies, we start to feel like it's somehow our responsibility to fix those, or it's our responsibility to carry those or to take them from the person. But it's not, you guys. We have so much power as sensitives and empaths to be healers and to be helpers. But when we put ourselves in a position where we're feeling like it's our responsibility to carry or to fix everybody else's problems, we are not standing in our power. In fact, we are letting ourselves get knocked down by the weight of the negative energy of other people. And from that place, we're not really doing the good that we could possibly be doing in the world. And I'm not saying that you're not helping people right now, because as sensitives, we're just like naturally awesome, good people. You know, we want to help, we want to heal, we want to be there for people. You have a huge, beautiful, amazing, loving heart. But if your goal is really to be a healer or to be, and I'm not even talking in like a professional way. I mean, that can be it, like what I do, but whatever way it is, I know that as a sensitive, as an empath, you have a deep desire to help and to heal, because that's just part of who we are. But if you want to really amplify that and amplify it in a way where you are really in charge of that healing energy and really putting it out there intentionally into the world, that's when you have to start to look at where you're taking responsibility for other people's shit, because that is going to drag you down. And when you are dragged down and when you are bogged down with emotional overwhelm, you are losing your power and you're feeling like shit, right? At the same time. So when you can do this returning to sender and returning to sender with love and start recognizing and releasing things as they come up, you're clearing yourself so that you can continue to stand in your strength, in your power, and your energy. And here's the thing, guys, your energy by itself is healing and helping and beautiful. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to take on anything for anybody else. Just your presence, just the way that you hold space for people, that in and of itself is profoundly healing. So, but we often feel like we have to take this stuff on, but you don't. And part of the reason why you feel so emotionally overwhelmed is because you're taking everybody's stuff on and taking responsibility for it when it's not yours to be responsible for. So do the daily check-ins, take your emotional pulse, right? Make sure that you start being aware of what you're feeling and what you're telling yourself about what you're feeling, right? What are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself that you're overreacting? Are you telling yourself that your feelings aren't valid? Are you telling yourself that it's your responsibility to take care of this stuff for other people? Really start to check in with that stuff and notice it, because knowledge and awareness is power. And when you have that knowledge and that awareness, then you can really start to see, is this actually serving me? Is this actually serving anybody else, right? And then what's a different way that I could handle this? What's a different way that I could navigate this, deep feeling self that I have? Another good way to release emotions and to move through your emotions is just to sit with them for 90 seconds. Now, I'm not saying every emotion will just magically lift and leave you and never come back if you sit with it for 90 seconds. But when you can sit with a feeling, no matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter how much it hurts, but just sit there and honor it and be like, I feel awful right now. I feel awful, and let yourself cry. Like, tears are not bad. Tears are there for a reason. They're release. It's a medicine. It's a way to release what's in you. Let yourself cry. Tears are beautiful. They're an expression of your feeling. And let yourself sit with that feeling and hold it in a place of deep self-compassion, rather than what we usually do is beat ourselves up over our feelings. Right? But when you can look at your pain and have compassion for yourself, the kind of compassion that you so freely give to everybody else around you, and hold yourself in that place of compassion and let yourself feel that feeling, it is going to lift. It might come back, but you can then do it again. But if you push it down, or you beat yourself up over it, or you invalidate it to yourself, it's gonna get stuck. And those stuck emotions end up manifesting as anxiety and depression and deep overwhelm, and a lot of times physical illness. And this is why so many of us who are sensitive struggle with chronic fatigue and struggle with, constant overwhelm and feeling like we have no energy. Hi, Carrie. And that's where a lot of that stuff comes from, is because we have invalidated our own truth and our own feelings for so long that we have this backlog. And then we have everything that we're taking in every day on top of that, right? So no wonder we're exhausted and overwhelmed. It makes so much sense. And so when you start to realize this, again, rather than beating yourself up for it, look at it with curiosity and not judgment, right? We're so quick to judge ourselves, but we're so forgiving and compassionate to everybody else. But why don't you deserve the same? You have to start asking yourself that. Why don't you deserve the same, compassion and love, and to have the same worth that you give to everybody else, right? You are worthy without doing anything. You don't have to do anything to be worthy. You are inherently worthy as a human being. And so when we can start to recognize that, and we can start to treat ourselves the way that we would treat a friend, then we can start to allow these feelings to come up and flow, and they start to release with a lot more ease. Another thing that I always recommend is journaling. And the reason why is because it's a conversation with ourselves. It's a way of taking all of this craziness that's up here, right? Like all what feels like craziness to us, like all of the information that we're processing, all of the feelings that we're absorbing from the world, our own feelings. That's a lot of stuff that we're carrying. And as sensitives, we tend to be up here, right? I don't know if you guys relate to this, but there's this feeling of being out of your body. It's not being grounded because we're so up here, we're processing all of this stuff. And, we're scanning our environment and we're outward focused, and our little like intuitive feelers are all doing their thing. And so we're very up here. So when we sit down and we let ourselves sit with our feelings, and we give ourselves time each day, time by ourselves, time in silence, and you can have music on, whatever makes you feel peaceful and calm and connected to yourself. That's the most important thing. Because when you have that space and time to be with yourself and to sit down and to write, then you're letting those things out. You're coming back down into your body. You're letting yourself get grounded, and grounded in your own energy, not the energy of everything you've been picking up from the world around you. And then when you write stuff out, you can start to see it sort of untangles, the mess of thoughts and feelings and emotions that you've had going on all day, to start to be like, oh, okay, I understand why I feel this way. Like, this makes sense. It's when you write and you write things out, it's a release. It's a releasing process, but it's also a way of looking for clues of why you're feeling the way that you feel. And then being able to pull in that self-compassion piece, you know, and really have like love and forgiveness for yourself for what you're going through and what you're feeling. And then the next step that comes is, okay, now what do you want to do about it, right? But we often get way stuck up here and we never get down to the part where it's like, what am I going to do about it now? And so we feel stuck and we feel overwhelmed and we feel chronically anxious, and we oftentimes feel like victims, not in a negative sense, but you know, it's hard not to feel like a victim when you're flooded with everybody's negative stuff and emotions all day, right? It's hard not to feel like you're a victim to the emotional storms of the world and to the noise of the world. But you're not a victim, and you're much more powerful than you know, and you're much more resilient than you know. And your best friend is going to be self-awareness and self-compassion and self-care, and really taking this time for yourself, because that's where you build this deep, deep connection to your truth. And your truth, the truth of your inner guide, the truth of your feelings, your deep inner compass, that is what is going to carry you through everything. What you're doing is you're building strong roots. And we need these strong roots as sensitives, because the world is hard and it is overwhelming. It's also beautiful and amazing, right? That's one of the light sides of being sensitive, is that we feel not just the pain, but we feel all of the feels of like the amazingness of the world. And we're so easily moved by things, moved to tears, right? That's beautiful. That's an amazing thing, that we're able to take in the beauty around us at such a deep level. But we also are often bogged down by the pain. And so when we do this work to build deep roots, when we do this work to really connect to ourselves, I like to think of it as like there's a tree in a storm, right? Okay, so here's me with my metaphors again. So there's a tree in a storm. And if there's a tree that has rotted old roots and, you know, is not very strong, and there's a big storm, that tree might very likely fall over. But if there's a tree that has been standing for a long time and has deep, deep roots, it's not going to get knocked around so much by the storm, right? It's going to weather it much better. And it's the same thing with us sensitives. When we do this work to build deep roots, we weather the emotional storms so much easier and with so much more grace. And so where a lot of us, our focus has been on trying to fit in and trying to push the feelings away. But the truth is that the opposite is what is going to serve you the best. The opposite is letting the feelings come up, holding the feelings, listening to them, moving through them, giving yourself that space and time to connect to yourself, and being who you truly are and standing up for who you truly are. Like, being different is awesome. I don't want to be the same as everybody else. I like it that I'm kind of a weirdo and I'm different, you know? I didn't used to. I used to absolutely, completely, 100% hate being sensitive. But I only hated it because I didn't understand it, and because I felt like it made people not like me. And the truth that I've come home to in myself is that this is a divine gift that I have. And you guys, all of you out there watching that are sensitive and that are empaths, you have a divine gift. It's just that we need to start seeing it that way and treating it that way for ourselves, right? So I hope that this has been helpful for you guys. I hope that these tips serve you. You know, I would really just start with doing the emotional pulse check-ins. If you missed that part of the video, I recommend that you set a timer on your phone for several times a day where you check in with yourself, ask yourself what you're feeling, ask yourself what you've picked up from the world around you, prioritize your self-care. And you guys, here's the thing. We all lead very busy lives, okay? So you don't have to do this like an hour a day. I mean, it's great if you have the possibility to do that, but even 5 minutes a day on a regular basis of doing these check-ins and having time with yourself is gonna start to add up over time and over time and over time. And it's really going to serve you. And if you're still in a place where you feel like you have this backlog of feeling, it's gonna help you to slowly release the pressure a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time, so that it doesn't have to feel unsafe, so that you don't feel like you're going to be opening the floodgates, right? It's creating safe space for being who you are, for validating your own self, for validating your own feelings, and for validating your importance in this world as a sensitive person. So important, so, so important. So if you guys are loving this content, if you're resonating with this, I will be back tomorrow. Let's see, what are we talking about tomorrow? Where did my notes go? I will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific time as well. And tomorrow we are going to be talking about, yes, very important. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about the unlearning. And so the unlearning is really about starting to move through these limiting beliefs that we've picked up as we grew up, right? And the things that we tell ourselves that are not serving us. And how do we move through that so that we can, you know, start to get rid of the blocks that are holding us back from accepting our own worthiness. And so we're going to be diving into that tomorrow. But if you guys are loving this, please share with your friends. And if you are feeling called to get more individual one-on-one support around this, there are 4 more days before I'm closing the doors to my Sensitive Badass Coaching Mentorship, which is the most magical program I've ever created. And I am so excited about it. We have 10 spots. There are 3 taken, so 7 left. And it is going to be a really powerful 6-month program of doing this deep work of coming home to the truth of who you are, really, really strengthening your confidence and your sense of safety in the world, and really standing in your power as a sensitive woman and an empath. And so if you guys are feeling called, those of you on Instagram, the link is in my profile if you want to check out the program. For those of you on Facebook, once again, the link is in the title of this video. You can also schedule a free call with me. I'm taking those all through Friday. Super low pressure, just low key, get to know each other, chat about what's going on with your sensitivity, and see if this mentorship would be a good fit for you. So Facebook, I will be posting that link below, and Instagram, that link is in my profile as well. So thank you guys for joining me today. I love having you all on with me. I love it. I love it. Thank you. I'm so honored to have you guys here. And I am really excited for tomorrow's training. So be sure to join me tomorrow. And I will be posting the replays of these on my story on Instagram and on my profile on Facebook. All right, guys, have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday.